So I have a niece who is the director of a child care center. And some time back, she shared a little experience that she had. So one day, she was helping one of her children, I think it was about 5 years old, get on his boots so that he could go outside and play. Well, for some reason, it was a real struggle getting those boots on, and they finally get them on, both a little frustrated, both a little sweaty from the work of trying to get those boots on. And he looks down at his feet and he says, "They're on the wrong feet." So off the boots came, and they put them back on again. And he looks down at his feet and he said, "These are not my boots." So off the boots come again, and he looks, so off the boots come, and then she said, "So where are your boots?" And she said, "Well, they're at home. My mother couldn't find them, so she gave me a pair of my brother's old boots to wear today." Back the boots went on. She gets the boots on, and she says, "Okay, now you're ready. Where are your gloves?" And he looks at her and he said, "I stuffed them in the toes of my boot." I guess 5 times the charm, right? I share this experience because it has much to do with the word we hear proclaimed today. The reality is we get up every day and we go about our work. We sometimes reach a point where we become so frustrated. And some days it seems like nothing's working the way it should work, and all we want to do is go back to bed and start all over again. Or perhaps if the day is really challenging, we want to go back to bed and never get out of it again. And the challenge we face every day in faith is getting up, going out into the world, and working, right? So a lot of us don't realize that our church has a theology of work. John Paul II talked about it. That in our tasks, in our work every day, we are called to collaborate with the purposes of God. And when I talk about work, when we're speaking of work, we're not talking about just the things we do to earn a living. It's all those tasks that we do day in and day out as we walk in the world with one another. Everything from washing the dishes to mopping the floors to being a part of any community event to the work we might do for our church to the work that we might do to make a living for our family. All a part of the work that God has given to us, right? All a part, in other words, all opportunities for us to collaborate in the purposes of God. We are given the work of our life to collaborate in the purposes of God. And the reality is that this work engages us wholly and fully, right? These tasks engage us wholly and fully, body, mind, spirit. They call us to do something to bring about the very Spirit of God and that grace and mercy to those we journey with. And when I talk about the collaboration in the purpose of God, even in the smallest of tasks we do, that's really what we're about. That's what gives us purpose, that gives us dignity. And that's why, if you ever think about those who are unemployed and they can't find a job, that's why they suffer so much. It's not just about not being able to provide for their family. It is about that sense of, I have purpose, I have dignity, and that seems lost and gone. Even in the simplest of tasks, like I said, we collaborate in the purposes of God. So when we care for our families, when we wash the dishes, when we prepare a meal, when we schedule and go and we're present at someone's celebration or event, all collaborate in God's purposes, bringing the spirit of light and truth, building the very kingdom of God. And once we get that, once we understand that, it enables us to rethink how we enter into each of those tasks, right? What am I about? Fulfilling the purpose of God. Isn't that truly remarkable? Everything I do is about collaborating and fulfilling the purposes of God. And once we get that, we realize that we all have something to offer. We all have something to offer. That in the work that we do, each and every one of us help fulfill the purpose of God. And I know sometimes it might feel like we're beating our head against the brick wall, and it might feel that, why do I bother? Because it doesn't really matter. But it does matter, right? It does matter. If those tasks, if that work is not completed, someone is going to suffer from it. Maybe it's ourselves, but most likely it's those most immediately around us, right? It didn't happen, so that grace was never given. That experience of God's presence was never shared. We all have something to offer, and we all have a part to play in collaborating in the purposes of God. Finally, we come to realize that if we're going to do this, right, if we're going to collaborate in the purposes of God, it means we actually have to do it. So why was he so frustrated? Because he didn't bother. Out of fear, right? Out of fear, he didn't do what he could do, even in the simplest of ways. And the same holds true for us. It takes risk. We have to put ourselves out there. We actually have to stand up and do it, right? Otherwise, the purposes of God are not fulfilled, and the kingdom is not built in our midst. So we gather as we come to the conclusion and we enter into the final stages of our church year, and we hold before ourselves this great truth. This is what we have always been about. This is why we get up every day, and this is why we try time and time again, because we collaborate. We seek to collaborate in the very purposes of God. And we do that by understanding that we all have something to offer. There's always something that each and every one of us can do, in small ways, in large ways, by simply performing the work given to us so that that might be possible. Being bold enough, being courageous enough to take the risk to collaborate in the very purposes of God.